The abandoned body of Mary, Queen of Scots. There are cases where you stumble across something in history that makes you scratch your head. And annoyingly so, many of these are questions usually on a matter that many have glossed over or seen fit to overlook. This video, we shall be taking a look at one of these conundrums. In the month of January, I was given the opportunity to visit Peterborough Cathedral in England. This cathedral is over 1400 years old and began its current iteration's construction during the reign of William the Conqueror. Although the site, much like Ely Cathedral, can be dated back to as far as the Anglo-Saxon times. However, the significance of Peterborough Cathedral in history was one of the reasons I was visiting it in the month of January, for Peterborough Cathedral for a time held 2 queens, and although one has since been removed, the other still remains. They having been the Queen of England, Catherine of Aragon, and Queen Mary of Scotland, more commonly referred to as Mary, Queen of Scots. These 2 Catholic queens were interred in the walls of the cathedral, and Peterborough chose to celebrate, on the anniversary of her funeral, the Catherine of Aragon Festival for commemoration, something I had the great pleasure in attending. It was during this festival and the tours and events of the cathedral that I came across an interesting sentence. Mary, Queen of Scots, was executed at Fotheringhay Castle on the 8th of February 1587. Yet she was not buried until the 30th or 31st of July 1587. Why over 5 months? Now here is where the words that piqued my intrigue slip in. The tours of Peterborough Cathedral are in partnership with the local museum, so naturally they are sourced and fact-checked. So the lines stated about Mary's lengthy wait are as follows. Elizabeth forbade Mary to be buried in or anywhere near London for her being seen as a Catholic martyr. The Scottish nobility forbade her from re-entering Scotland under pain of dismemberment and display. Was Mary really that unliked by the Scottish? That we may have to save for another video, but it did lead me to wonder what was meant to happen to Mary and why did it take so long? The problem is, this wait is usually glossed over or never spoken of, so all we have are snippets of information and speculation. Mary, Queen of Scots, had her death warrant signed by Elizabeth on the 4th of February 1587. Though we do have evidence that suggests Elizabeth did not want the execution that took place. It is instead suggested that she wanted Mary killed more quietly and privately, such as with the art of poison instead of beheading, and that her Privy Council acted without her authority. This could lead one to believe that they were unprepared for when the sword swung. However, this was not the case. Mary's body was prepared, embalmed, and had her entrails removed before being sealed in a lead coffin forthwith, so the lack of preparation left no delay. Mary had requested to be buried in France, stipulating this is where she was her most happiest and had spent her favourite years. This being very likely, as not only did Mary grow up in the French court, but her first marriage to King Francis II of France was both a political marriage, but also a love match. Francis's younger brother, the current king, King Henry III of France, seemed to be aware of Mary's funeral and burial wishes. Once he learned of the Queen's death, he requested her body and organised a funeral for her to take place at Notre Dame on the 4th of March. Elizabeth is said to have refused, and this funeral instead became a commemoration. Scotland, however, is an unusual one. Mary's son and successor, James, who would later go on to be King James I of England, was 20 at the time of his mother's death. And yet we have evidence to show he had little to do with trying to ease his mother's imprisonment, nor prevent her execution. He seemed more interested in remaining in Elizabeth's good graces to become her heir. One source tells us that Scottish Parliament, which was held at the beginning of summer in 1587, that members knelt and swore to avenge Mary Queen of Scots, although they quickly changed their tune when one of their group tried to actually do so. However, other sources describe Scotland's indifference to the heavily disliked and dethroned Catholic Queen. Her time ruling was not seen favourably, and we have multiple sources showing she was mourned more in the Catholic France and used as Catholic propaganda in Spain than she ever was in Scotland. During this time, her body remained at Fotheringhay Castle. Her lead coffin was placed in a room not far from the Great Hall, where she was executed, and for 5 months that was where it lay undisturbed. Mary's ladies were kept at the castle in a state of limbo during this time. Adam Blackwood, a Scottish author and apologist of Mary, is the only account I can find on what happened to Mary's body during this limbo period. He states that she was placed in a lead coffin, and in June this coffin was found to have ruptured and was mended by a plumber. It is also from Adam Blackwood that we learned petitions from both the ladies and the servants were sent regularly to Queen Elizabeth's Privy Council. In July, having denied France Mary's body, and Scotland seemingly shown no interest in the deposed Queen's body, Elizabeth sent men to organise Mary's funeral at Peterborough Cathedral. On the night of the 30th of July, Mary's body was transported to the cathedral, where she was laid to rest, and her funeral took place on the 1st of August 1587. There is where she would lay until 1612, when her son, now King of England as well as Scotland, as King James I, ordered his mother's remains to be removed from Peterborough and to be reburied in Westminster Abbey, near Queen Elizabeth herself. Inside the cathedral, on the right of the high altar, still remains the commemorative slab and plaque for the once dead Queen Regina's tomb. But the mystery still remains as to why it took so long for the deposed Queen of Scotland to be given her burial. Thank you for watching this episode of Days of Yore and Lore. To support this channel, please share it with anyone else you think would enjoy these videos. Like and subscribe. Let me know in the comments down below of any subject you would like me to look into, and I will see you all in the next video.